else in this room is feeling it too. You can accomplish anything you want to in this year, so don't write any of that stuff off. If you want to go to Bora Bora and be a top 10 coach, you can do that. There's only 11 days that have gone by so far. So keep that in mind when you're making your goal boards tonight, and don't ever write yourself off, especially when there's only been 11 days so far. So, next, we have a very, 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 very special guest who's going to come up here and give us an awesome speech. He told me not to make a big deal about him and not to make a big introduction, so that's what's going to happen. He is the Vice President of Coach Development and Strategy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah? He told me basically the guy who does the training for everybody. Technical term. But basically, he is the guy who makes everything confusing for our teams make sense in a really nice, concise video. And I can say one of the most kind-hearted people that I have ever come across in this business. I trust him, I admire him, I respect his word, and anything that he has to put out in Team Beachbody, I will give willingly to my team. So we are going to hear from the amazing Kim Carver tonight. So come on up.
Okay. I actually forgot that I was in the Super Saturday video. I was like, oh yeah. And they even used the wrong version of the video where it cuts back to me going. I told him, I was like, get that out. I know it's stupid. And you saw how much they listened to me. Let me open this. There we go. The reason, well, first of all, thank you for letting me come. Guys.
Thank you.
I really appreciate being here for a lot of reasons. It's nice to get out with coaches. They just kind of keep me in a closet back at corporate, and I miss talking to people, so it's good to see humans again. But also, it snowed 8 inches where I live earlier this week, so it's really nice to be here where it's warm. But more than anything, it's really good to see all of you and a lot of coaches here that I've known for a long time. Some of them that I worked with, where are you guys? Like from the very first 4.5 years ago when I started working with Beachbody, I worked with coaches directly and worked with a couple of you. I just look at these two up here because they're closest to me. And it's always been a highlight of my career, the chance that I've had to work here. And part of the reason why I was like, don't say my title, because then I feel like it gets weird. They're like, oh, he's the vice president. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. If my kids were here, they would disarm that really quickly. He's not the vice, he's my dad, and he farts, and he's just this guy that eats too much pizza. I mean, that's really who I am. Okay. I've got 4 kids, been married for 21 years, and the things that matter most are the things that matter most, right? And, you know, as we go through, as I was thinking about what I want to share tonight, I knew that you're going to have the onslaught of information from the video. These January Super Saturday videos is really like, open up, here's a fire hose, just consume what you can. And so I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to pile on that. I will say this. I'm going to pick up what Bonnie just shared. It's never too late. I don't care if there's 11 days into the year or 11 days left in the year. Okay? It's never too late to get started on anything that you want to do. It's never too late to get started on anything that means something to you and to build something for yourself. Anyone that tells you differently is lying to you, or you're listening to the wrong source that's speaking to your heart about that. And so, here's what I would do though. I would just focus, this is when I would work with coaches, we would talk about this, and I would say, you fight the battle that's in front of you right now. What are the things that are in front of us right now that we can focus on? Because the funny thing is sometimes we get caught so much about what we're going to do, and tonight you're going to do some dream boards and things like that, which are awesome, but I'm going to tell you right now that those won't do anything to you if you wake up tomorrow and you kind of go, Okay? The most important thing you can do is to be in motion. Motion is what creates results. Forward motion is what creates results. And so pick something. Make sure you get on a team cup. Make sure you're talking about, or at least versed in Transform 20. Understand what's going on. Those are battles right now that you could be doing. Okay? The Success Club system, obviously, I have some feelings about that. That was a lot of energy put into that, and I do know how effective it is. And so if you want, go to the Beachbody Champions page. Is anyone not on the Beachbody Champions page? Actually, that's the wrong way I said it. If you are not on the Beachbody Champions page, find someone in here who is. Raise your hand if you are on the Beachbody Champions page. You now know who to talk to. If you don't want to talk to them, just go to Facebook and search Beachbody Champions page. Request access to that page. And in the units section, I just uploaded today. That's what I spent all afternoon doing. Those of you on the page, I apologize because I totally destroyed the discussion board with all the crap I was uploading. But all the tracker itself, and then the trainings that support that. And I want to talk about the tracker. This is something that didn't make the cut in the video. So here's something that we learned with the tracker. You'll download that. And there's something really powerful about having something that focuses your activities on some key things that you know if you do consistently will yield results. It can lessen the noise, because then it just becomes the discipline to do it. And so there's kind of a good, better, best scenario here. Good is to download it and start doing it sometimes. Okay? Better is to do it and really focus on checking the boxes. How many of you like to check boxes off lists? Okay, you're going to really like this thing now. But I want to talk about best for a minute, okay? Because I do think that sometimes we can get satisfied with better when we can really do best. Does that make sense? When we were looking at this, there was an intangible that happened with people that would use the tracker. You would get the better and the best crew, and they were all ticking boxes, but what was the difference between the better and the best crew? Well, in addition to their outcomes, the best crew had helped more people and had a little bit more success with it. And when I dove into it a little bit deeper, because I want to see what it was there some Instagram story technique they were using? Were they paying for ads? What was this thing? I'll tell you what it was. It was purpose. The difference between better and best was the people that did best consistently knew why they were doing what they were doing. They wanted to check those boxes, just like everybody else did. But they knew why they were checking those boxes. And so their actions were infused with purpose. Their actions, they understood the goal that they were building towards. And that's hard to teach somebody. That's hard to train somebody how to do that. Because on the outside it looks the same. Tick, 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 tick. But the results can be very, very different. And especially in a relationship-oriented business like we have, and especially in a relationship-oriented business that deals with the problems that we deal with. Okay? It's not makeup, it's not nails. Nothing wrong with makeup or nails. Personally, I don't wear any of them, but I do have nails. Don't really do much with them other than bite them and other things I shouldn't. Okay? But we're talking about typically the people that you guys talk to, they've got some struggles. And these struggles are personal. And these struggles of chances have been haunting them for a long time. And the very fact that they're willing to talk to you is a big step on a lot of their parts. You guys know what I'm talking about here. So when they feel like you care, when the purpose behind what you're doing is manifest in those little things that you do, because it's just there, it's just saturated into your actions, they're more willing to open up and to trust you. They're more willing to connect with you. And that's one of the things that I love about what we do. I've been around direct selling my whole life. I used to do in-home demos with my dad. Water filtration systems. We would have to undo their plumbing under their sink, and he would hook this thing up, this contraption. And my one job after he was done was to drink the water that came out of this tube and say, "Yummy, it's good." Because back then it was this foreign concept, this idea of filtered water. But I've been professionally on the corporate side of it for about 18 years now, 19 years. And I've never seen anything like what we've got here. because of the coaching community, because of what we value, and because of the purpose that we have. I'm going to share an experience with you that actually just had its, what I think, I'm guessing, is probably its closing chapter 2 months ago. So I'm kind of excited to share it, because it's the first time I've been able to do the whole thing. But the purpose of me sharing this to you is to remember something. I know that chances are there's people in here that kind of fall into this mindset. I'm just so-and-so. I like being here. This is a fun place. But I don't really think that what I'm doing is going to have that big of an impact. Bora Bora, I can't even get to SC4. Okay? And I'm going to push on that thinking right now, I hope, with this. Because at some point we have to put down those things that we just kind of lug around. They're convenient forms of self-sabotage that we kind of indulge in because they're comfortable and they're familiar to us. And the hard thing is, there'll come to a point in your life when you recognize you're doing that to yourself, and you'll just decide, okay, I can set this down, and you'll be surprised what happens, because you're the only one that's been carrying that around. You're the only one that's had to do that. You did that to you. So I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to share something with you that I hope will help you do that, if that's you, because you do matter. This was the first theme of the first summit that I came to. Everyone matters. Some of you probably remember that theme. And I love this theme because, guys, you matter. Every one of you in here matter. Every one of you, your life experiences, the things you've gone through have positioned you perfectly to reach people, to reach a certain person or individual or group of people in a way that they could never be reached to before. And I hope all of us in here, all of you do incredibly well. And you all just go by an island in the Bahamas together, and a Super Saturday just is in one of the islands. We can all just canoe to each other's island, right? That would be great. But it's my belief that in the twilight of our years that won't matter. Is the legacy that we've left, the lives that we've touched, the fingerprints that we've left in people's lives, that we can look back and say that we did that. What a cool thing it is to be in a business that allows you to do that, that gives you a platform to do that. Oh, and in some ways also compensates you when you do that. Because the power of one person to change a life is amazing to me. And I saw it on display, and I've seen it firsthand in a lot of instances of my life, but in one specific instance. This is my daughter. We go through this. I went through all this. This is my daughter, Caitlin. So I've got 4 children. My 2 oldest kids have special needs. It's called Fragile X syndrome, for those of you that really want to look it up. If not, come ask me. I'll tell you all about it. We found out when my wife was pregnant with Caitlin. My oldest son was 2 years old when the diagnosis came through. Because it's genetic, when Caitlin was born, they tested her, and she came back positive as well with the same disability. And Fragile X is an interesting disability because in a lot of ways it kind of looks like autism in certain ways, right? And their inability to kind of deal with abstract thought and sarcasm. They tend to have social anxieties and social issues where they don't quite understand. But Fragile X is also unique because it tends to affect boys and girls a little bit differently. My son, who only, for those of you who don't know genetics, has 1 X chromosome, was very severely affected. My daughter has 2. So one of her X chromosomes has the Fragile X, which is what they call Fragile X, the disability on it, and the other one doesn't. And so my daughter, my son Caleb, if you were to see him, I think a few of you have, he'll actually be on the cruise this year, so if you haven't met my son Caleb, you get a chance to meet him. He'll probably pull his hoodie down and go like this when you see him, but just say hi to him. He's a good kid. My son Caleb, you would see him and you would go, okay, that kid needs some assistance, like he's not, okay. And not in a bad way, but you could just tell that he had the disability. My daughter, on the other hand, you would look at her and after about 5 minutes, you go, I'm not quite, I don't know what it is, right? Because she's a lot like normal kids, right? She gets embarrassed when you talk about boy bands, right? And she doesn't like her dad to try to dance with her in the kitchen, even though I keep trying, okay? She just is a normal girl. She likes teeny bop things and shopping and all this kind of stuff, right? But she also struggles with this disability. The hardest thing for me with Caitlin is whereas Caleb kind of gets the wide berth, people never kind of gave Caitlin that accommodation. And Caitlin also understood that she was different. When she was towards the end of her elementary school, they have these things called IEPs, everyone is familiar with that, individual education plans. And we would go in and talk with her teachers on a quarterly basis and the people that provide her services, and you kind of get an update on how things are going with their goals. And we would sit down with them, and every time it was the same thing. Caitlin's a wonderful girl, she's so amazing, she's such a sweetheart, all this stuff and all these things. And then we would get to the part where we talk about her social. And then the room would get a little quiet. It'd be like we're concerned about her socially. And the hardest one for me was the last few ones they had when she was in 8th grade. I remember they would say things like, she eats lunch by herself. She just kind of goes into the lunchroom quietly and kind of sits on a table by herself, and she'll eat, and then she'll just wait, and then she'll leave. Or she'll be out on recess, and she'll just quietly go sit over by the wall and kind of lean down and kind of squat against the wall and just sit there until recess is done. And we talked to Caitlin about this. And it took a little bit to pull out of her, but we found out that there's been some kids that were being pretty mean to her. Sometimes little kids can be unintentionally cruel or unintentionally, ignorantly cruel. And they would make fun of her because she didn't understand the jokes. And they would tease her because she couldn't keep up with what was going on. And so she recognized that was happening but didn't understand why. And so she just kind of would withdraw. And we knew that she struggled socially. There was this, in fact, I think I actually have a picture of it. That's Caitlin's spot on our couch. If she were to sit there, you would see it conforms perfectly to her little buttocks and her back and her head. And she would come home every day after school and sit on that spot and watch TV until it was time to go to bed. Every single day. There was no friends coming over. She wasn't going out to do friends. They didn't give her homework, in her classes. And it was getting concerning to my wife and I just for her health. She was putting on a lot of weight. She was just eating like a teenager, just not moving. And we were concerned about her socially. And so what I would do is if I had any excuse to go do something, I would go home and try to get Caitlin. And I remember one day, about this time, I had to go to the orange store. Now in my house, that's what we call Home Depot. When you have special needs kids, this is the kind of stuff that you do. If you say Home Depot, confuse them. The orange store, got it, Dad. So in our house, we call Home Depot the orange store. So I had to go to Home Depot, and I was like, I'm going to go home and get Caitlin. So I swung by kind of on the way to get Caitlin, went in the house, and sure enough, she was sitting in her spot. And I said, Caitlin, come on, let's go to Home Depot. Just trying to do anything to get her out of the house. Anything I could. And of course, she did the same. No, Daddy, I don't want to go. Caitlin, let's go. I'm like, I do this every time. She knows how this is going to go. She says no twice, and then I offer her some kind of a bribe, and then she says yes. So I decided that day to keep it quick and just go right to the bribe. Hey, I'll get you a root beer if you come. Okay, Dad, I'll go. Don't judge me, okay? Got her out of the house. Just got to tell you how healthy he was, and then I'm feeding her root beer too, okay? I'm sorry. I didn't get her out of the house. When we were driving down the hill from my house to go to the orange store, and she was sitting in the passenger seat, and she's not a chatty girl, unless she's really excited about something. But as I was driving, I kept seeing her look up at me, and then she would look forward. And so she would look at me, and I'd look at her, and then she'd look ahead, and I'd do this little thing for a second. And so finally, I just stopped, and I said, Caitlin, what's wrong? I said, look at me, are you okay? I'm trying not to cry, because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so I apologize if I get emotional with this. Actually, I don't apologize, I'll just ask you to understand. She looked at me and she goes, Daddy, I have Fragile X, and that means that I've got a special brain, which is why I'm different than other kids. Whoa. That is not something they prepare you for in parenting classes. And I pulled the car to the side of the road real quick, and I just held her. I hugged her and I said, baby, you are just how God made you. I love you so much. I felt so insufficient in that moment to be her dad. I did not know what to say. So I just held her and I loved her, and I tried not to let her see me crying, because I think that would have scared her. And I came home and asked my wife, and they had that conversation based on what was happening at school and the kids teasing her. And Caitlin was starting to really understand what was going on with her and trying to connect those dots. And I said, when this started to take place, this little miracle. It was a girl, one of the high school girls from my neighborhood. And she's like, hey, can I talk to you? Which is weird, because usually high school girls don't come in looking to talk to me, even when I was in high school that day. So this was new. And so I was like, me? And she goes, well, you and your wife. I'm like, okay. And her name was Sarah. And I invited her in and went and got Katie, my wife, and we sat down, and she said, I was just made captain of the cross-country team at the high school. And I was wondering if Caitlin would like to come run on the team. She goes, if she'll run on the team, I'll take care of her. If she will do it, I'll make sure she's okay. But I just thought that would be something she might like to do. And my wife and I thanked her. My wife shared with me, she knew her mom, obviously from the neighborhood, and kind of shared with her mom what was going on. And this girl had heard that and decided to come and do that. And I remember as she left, the door closed, and Katie and I kind of looked at each other, and we kind of hugged and was like, okay, this could be the answer to prayer. This could be perfect. We could do this, and she could go get into it. We were getting nervous about high school, because it's not like social things get easier in high school, and how's she going to do this? Maybe this is the answer, because, hey, it's cross country. There's not a lot of talking, because you're breathing so hard, right? This could work. And maybe she could make some friends and feel a part of something, but we knew that the biggest challenge was going to be the fact that Caitlin just sat on that couch. Caitlin didn't run, ever. I don't think she had ever run in her life. And so we were like, okay, we kind of had a little game plan of how we were going to do this, and I was going to walk in and bring it up, and then Katie would kind of come in on the backside and try to close the deal. And we strategized this, and we went in there, and I said, hey, Caitlin, that was Sarah. Who's Sarah? Oh, she's Carla's daughter. She goes to the high school. Oh, okay. She knew something was up at this point, like, what are mom and dad talking about? I said, she, really cool, Caitlin, she wants you to come on the cross-country team with her. She was just made the captain, it's like the boss, and so she wants you to come run on the team. Wouldn't that be fun? What's cross-country, Daddy? It's running. Running? Yeah, just a lot of running, Caitlin, that's what it is. It's just get together and you run. Not really selling this well. She looked at me and she kind of got furrowed her brow a little bit. She's like, Daddy, I don't want to do that. And I was like, Caitlin, come on, it could be so good. And all of a sudden I lose all like decorum, and I'm just like going into full-blown desperation sell mode, right? Some of you have done this before. You're trying to sell a challenge plaque, or you're pulling out begging any favor you can, right? And I'm like, baby, this would be so good for you. You don't know. I mean, this would be a great way for you to make friends, and you could do all these, you could get to know people, and you wouldn't have to talk to them because it's running. You can't talk while you're running because you're just breathing. So this would be such a good thing. And every time I'm saying, she's like, no, Daddy, no. And I can just see, like, I'm painting her into this corner that she will never get out of, and I don't know how to stop myself. So thankfully, my wife, who loves me and knows my weaknesses, kind of goes, okay, and kind of like pulled me out of the way and goes, and started talking to Caitlin. And I was sitting over there listening to Katie talk, and she's trying to explain it to her and the things that they would do. And I'm just sitting there desperate. I am praying for something to say to help her see this. And inspiration sometimes comes in a funny way, because all of a sudden I had this little thought, she loves to shop. She does love to shop. She's like a teenage girl that way. She will shop. All she wants for Christmas are gift cards. It's the most boring thing in the world to buy for her. She wants to go shop for herself. And so all of a sudden I was like, Caitlin, if you did do it, we'd have to go to the Nike store tonight and get you outfits. And she looked, and that stopped her. That stopped her in her tracks. And she looked at me, and I was like, okay, I saw my opening, and I went for it. I said, it's going to have to be like 2 or 3 shorts, like some shirts, 2 or 3 shirts, like socks, maybe some shoes, 2 shoes, Daddy? 2 shoes. At this point, anything's gonna go. And I just watched, and I was about to say something else, and the little voice in my head said, shut your mouth. And I just shut my mouth, and she just looked around for a second. She was like, okay, I'll do it. And I was like, play it cool, dude. Okay, everybody, we're gonna go to the store now. Let's all get in the van. My wife and I went in the other room, hugged each other. We're trying not to cry. Oh my gosh. Because the practice was the next day. So we went and got her stuff. We came home as she does every single night. She made a nice folded pile of all the clothes she was going to wear the next day. And we told her what time she had to wake up, because one of the things about Caitlin's disability, a lot like autism, is they like to have predictable things. And so she lays this out and she asks what her schedule is and what time she needs to be up and what the weather's going to be like and how cold is it going to be. Am I going to need to wear this or that? We went through that whole process. And the next morning, at 6 o'clock, she woke up. She went downstairs, she made herself a normal breakfast, Shakeology, and a Belvita cracker. She got dressed. Katie and I were down there. Actually, we'd been up since like 4:30. What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? You guys have done that before too. And at 6:20, Sarah pulled into our driveway and picked up my daughter. She didn't even say goodbye to us. She just left. And that summer, for 3 months, every morning, Monday through Saturday, at 6:20, Sarah was in my driveway. My daughter would run out the door, never say goodbye to us. And she took her. And for the first month, Sarah stayed right with her. She stayed right there. She introduced her to the team. She made sure that she was taken care of and that she felt welcomed. And they were great kids, by the way. Amazing kids. But for that first month, Sarah, who was a captain of the team, was not out there training the way that she needed to be training. She was back with my daughter, making sure that she was okay. And after that month, Sarah found Caitlin a running buddy. Someone who kind of ran about the same pace as my daughter. And he introduced her. He said, this is your running buddy. And they got to be friends. And she said, you stay with her. So they would go to practice. They would stay together. Then Caitlin, she needed Christmas. How many kids do I have? Caitlin would go with her running buddy, and they would warm up. They would go practice. And I watched my daughter in that summer blossom. I couldn't believe it. I'd come home from work and she'd tell me about her friends and the things that were going on. And I could tell she didn't understand a lot of what they were talking about. But she could remember what was going on and she felt part of the conversation. She felt she had a place to be. She was a cross country. She would tell everybody that I run cross country. I'm on the cross country team at the high school. Okay? We spent like $400 in high school cross country gear because that's all that she would wear. This is a very expensive decision that we made. Okay? And it would just to see her, and I saw that stupid couch. I would come home and she wouldn't be sitting in it anymore. She would be doing things, and she just blossomed in front of us. And I remember that you start to see that, and there was a little moment that happened when I could see the internal change in her happen. It was at her second race. The first race, we were talking, they said, Sarah was like, oh, Caitlin's a little confused about what a meet is. Well, first of all, she thought meat was like food, okay? So that was the first problem. Once we figured that out, then we said, okay, Caitlin, so meat's like a race, and she just thought cross country was just running like what she was doing at the high school. She didn't know about the races, so the first race we didn't do, but the second race was at our high school, where she was, and she agreed that she would do that because we could plan it out. Here's the plan, it's not a surprise, it's coming down the path. Okay, those of you that have experience with autistic children kind of know what I'm talking about here, okay? And so her first race comes. And like a lot of teenagers, period, they're embarrassed to be with their parents in any situation in public. And so I told her we're going to take her down to her meet. And she's like, no, you're not, Daddy. No, Daddy, I don't want you there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not fighting her. I'm like, we'll just drop you off. And we got about a block away. She's like, okay, I'll get out. And because she didn't want to be seen with her parents in her minivan. Minivans are cool, right? So anyway, We dropped her off, she ran, we waved to her, we drove around the block, and then pulled into the parking lot and got out because I wasn't going to miss this race. And I remember looking out at her, and this is her first race. And she was always the easy one to spot because she's the only cross-country runner I've ever seen with a hat. She's worn a hat since she was a fetus. She came out wearing a hat. Okay? She's wearing a hat out there, so I can see her out there, and she is just following Sarah like a puppy dog. Just anywhere Sarah goes, she's just right there with her. And I'm watching them mill about, and they line them all up, and Sarah then takes her to the back and puts her with her running buddy, gives her a hug, and goes to the front. And I'm sitting there with my kids, and my wife is saying, make sure you don't make a scene, because you're not supposed to be here, and she'll get mad at you. And I'm like, I'll be good, I promise. The gun goes off, and I watch them run, and the path goes like this. They line up here, they run outside the stadium, then they go behind the bleachers that are on this side of the stadium where I'm standing. They serpentine through the field. It goes out around a neighborhood, back, serpentines through the field, comes back in, through the stadium, they run down this part, and they go out, and they do that 3 times. I know, I thought that was a lot of running too. So by the time they're not even out of the football field, my daughter's last with her running buddy. And I don't care. Like, this is like the Olympics for me. I'm losing my crap, okay? I am not screaming, but I'm crying. I am bringing out every leadership life lesson I can. My 2 younger kids are down there like, come on, Tony Robbins, like, enough already. Dude. Like, you get it? Come on. She runs out, she runs a serpentine pattern, and the first lap she goes, she's right there with her running buddy. They're together. And I'm really good. This is me looking down at the field. This is going to become important in just a minute. And the interesting thing starts happening on lap 2. You can see her out here. Here's her running buddy. There was actually another couple people back with her. And I start noticing she's doing something on lap 2. As she's running, she kind of puts her head down and starts running. She'll start to distance herself from her running buddy. She'll get about 10 or 15 feet ahead, realize what she's done, and then she does this. She'd turn back and she would run back to her running buddy. She did this the whole second lap. She did 2 laps in one because she kept going back and forth. And I know, because I know my daughter, what was going through her head. Sarah said to stay with my running buddy. So I'm going to stay with my running buddy. At this point, when they come across that, I'm now, my crap has been lost. I'm screaming her name. And she sees me, she gives me this look like, you son of a bitch. And she swore, she would have sworn at that moment, but she didn't swear. She looked at me, it was like, nah. And I'm like, look at me. And I'm just a mess, right? I'm sure everyone around me is like, this is the most excited cross-country family I've ever seen. And so, anyway, she goes through, and they get in the 3rd lap, and as they come through that stadium again, her coach is standing there. And they're too far away, but this is what I see, so this is what I imagine the conversation going. I see him go, what's wrong? And Caitlin goes, I don't know, and she's pointing to her running buddy. And the coach goes, it's okay, I'll take her, you go. And Caitlin goes, go? He's like, yes, it's okay, you go. And so my daughter, at this point they were so far behind everybody, she put her head down and she just started to run. And she ran most of that 3rd lap by herself, which in a lot of ways was pretty poignant to me, symbolic in a lot of ways for my beautiful daughter. She still gave me a really dirty look when she came by. But I started to know something towards the end of the 3rd lap. As she was coming in, there was this girl that was kind of in front of her, and I was watching the gap get smaller and smaller, and all of a sudden, like, Daddy Bear came out, and I was like, get I mean, everyone else is gone. Like, they're home taking a shower, having a sandwich. And my daughter's finishing and acting like it's the end of the world. And she comes in, as they come in the stadium, she just slowly passes this girl. And I was like, anyway, you get the point. And I had this picture in my mind of her coming around that stadium. So they came around the last lap, and then they ran that last round, about 100 yards of it, 100 meters of it, and came across the finish line. So I'm bounding down the stadium steps, dragging my youngest kids with me, who are totally embarrassed to be with me at this point, but I don't care. And in my mind, I see this picture of me being at the finish line and Caitlin coming, and we embrace, and we have this moment. It's going to be so amazing. And as I'm coming down these steps, I hear a bunch of girls screaming my daughter's name. Go, Caitlin! Go, Caitlin! And Sarah had gotten the whole team, and they were out there cheering for my daughter like she was winning the gold medal at the Olympics. And so I stopped and I just watched. And I watched as they ran with her, and she crossed the finish line, and they all hugged her, and they loved on her, and she smiled, and I was so grateful, but I did sneak a picture. Was at the finish line, and you can tell by her face she's not happy with me right now. That was a formative time for Caitlin, when she found a place to be. In her freshman year, she ran. And in her sophomore year, she ran again. Sarah was a senior that year. In her junior year, she ran again. This year, Sarah had graduated at this point. Sarah hadn't come over to our house to take her to practice anymore in the mornings since that first year. Dang it. And her senior year, she ran. We'll go back to this. And her senior year, she ran as well. And this girl, who was kind of on the fringes, had found a place to be, had found herself, and during a critical time in her life, had found these friends and this experience that she'll remember forever because of one girl, Sarah. And I remember I watched her run her last cross-country race. And it was a hard one for me. Caitlin wasn't. She's like, okay, I'm done running tag, because she really doesn't totally. She likes cross-country. She doesn't like running. Wrap your head around that. But it was hard for me. 2 weeks after that, we get a phone call. The cross-country team has nominated your daughter to be in the homecoming pageant, because she's the longest tenured runner on the team. Would that be something she could do? We went to Caitlin, and I was ready to do whatever I had to do. Going to go get a Mercedes, Caitlin, we're going to do this, right? And when we told her about it, she looked at us, she goes, yeah, I'll do that. No bribery required. And I remember and I never, guys, okay, homecoming, first of all, I'm not a girl. I have a girl's name, but I'm not a girl, so I didn't know anything about homecoming pageants. Okay? My wife didn't know anything about homecoming pageants, so we're kind of going through this. And in my mind, I thought, all I knew from homecoming was when I went to the football game and they came out on the float, and you're like, yeah, I remember voting for one of those people. I don't know what it was, and that was it. So in my mind, it wasn't that big of a deal. And I had actually had to go to Canada for work for the days leading up to this, and my wife was in a flurry of trying to prepare for things, and they were doing stuff, and I knew things were going on, but in my mind, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. We had about 2 weeks to prepare for this. And honestly, I was really disconnected from the process, other than just saying, oh, that's really cool, and I'm excited for her. And I remember I landed, and I was driving to the high school like a bat out of Hades, because I was trying to get there in time for my trip to Canada. And in my brain, again, I thought this was going to be some small thing they did in like some lunchroom or something, but my wife's like, no, it's in the auditorium, you better hurry because there's not a lot of parking. I'm like, what do you mean the parking lot's huge? And I get there and there was no parking. I'm like, there are a lot of people here. And so I had to go park, and I'm texting my wife. I'm like, how big is it? She goes, well, the auditorium's packed. I'm saving you a seat, but you better hurry because there's people out in the hallway. And all of a sudden I'm getting really nervous, because this is my daughter, and this is loud, big, bright, intense noises are not her forte, and how is this going to happen? And she's like, there's 32 girls, and I'm like, holy crap, there's 32 girls? Okay, so I get in there, and I get in this place, and it is loud. It is so loud. All these kids are screaming, cheering for people. And they start off by doing this, they show the individual pictures, right? And I'm counting towards my daughter. My wife says, you better hurry, she's number 28. So there's 32, 28. If you get here, you won't miss anything. So I got there, and they're cheering every time a picture comes on. And all of a sudden, all my anxiety from high school comes up, and my daddy anxiety comes up, and my special needs parent anxiety comes up. And these three things are hitting me, and I'm like freaking out, because I'm like, holy crap, like they better like her. Like, oh my, and all of a sudden I'm so nervous for her. And her picture comes up, and there's this little pause, and then all of a sudden everyone starts screaming her name, and I'm like, okay, everything's okay, everything's okay. And now all of a sudden, everything my wife's been telling me is coming forward in my brain. Oh, she's got to do a skit. And I'm like, oh, skit? How's she gonna do a freaking skit? I thought that was gonna be in front of like 10 people. Okay? She'd been interviewed earlier that day with judges or whatever, I don't know. She's done this skit, and then she just did this evening wear. So the skit comes, and I'm watching all these skits, and these kids are coming out, and they're super funny, and there's all these things and these props, and I'm going, oh my gosh, like, and I remember saying a little prayer, like, please, please, everyone, just love her, and just let her be, and please, God, just let her have a good experience up there with this skit. And her turn comes, and it was right after probably the funniest one. I was like, please have the one right before it sucked. Please just like suck. So then when it's her turn, it's not that bad. And it was hilarious. It was a Spanish class. I did this telenovela, que hora es, funny thing. And I was laughing. I was like, crap, I hate that I'm laughing at this, but it's funny. And my daughter comes out with two people from the cross-country team. And the two kids from the cross-country team say this little rap that they had made up. And my daughter just starts dancing. And I'm like, oh shit. Because there's like 3 seconds of silence in this auditorium as she starts just shaking everything that she's got. And all of a sudden the place just erupts in cheering and screaming of her name. And I'm just crying now because I'm like, thank you, you wonderful, beautiful children. And I see her up there, and she is doing every Just Dance move, because that's what she had to do before she did cross country to get some exercise, that she can think of. And it was the longest 2 minutes of my life watching her do that. But she started smiling, and she was having fun. Then the evening wear portion came out, and all the girls before were like popping their hip. You guys remember about popping the hip and doing all the things they're supposed to do. And my daughter came out like it was a perp walk. It was like. The little boy that came out and gave her a flower, she reached over, she goes, and shoot him off the stage. Bless her freaking heart. Everyone cheered for her though. So I remember after the evening wear piece, I was just saying a little prayer. I was like, I'm so glad that she got through that she smiled, and everything was okay. Okay. And then they do the whole crowning of the homecoming court. Again, I'm learning this as we go along here. And I'll just show you. I took a video of this, and I'm really glad I did, but this is what you're going to notice. Well, I'll tell you just a second. So they all came out. Here's the girls. So first was Miss Congeniality. Okay. There's my daughter right there. So I'm filming this just like, okay. The next one was the Homecoming Princess, which I didn't know what that was. Those kids were, there was an episode of that. And they called my daughter's name. And I'm sitting there filming and going, so I hand the phone to my daughter in just a second. I'm like, just take it, I can't do this anymore. Hold on. You can see it starting to drift. I hand it to my daughter, who promptly takes it and does what I should have done from the beginning and zooms in. But she got Homecoming Princess. And I remember watching her on the stage and just going, and so after it was all done, they crowned everybody out, it was over, and I started making my way down the stage. I was with my two kids, and my wife was sitting on the other part of the gym. I said, go find your mom, I'm gonna go get Caitlin. So I'm going down and I'm trying to keep myself a little bit together, and I see her on the stage. She's just kind of looking around like, so I get down there and I call her name, and there's some friends that are hugging her, but I can just tell her she's just kind of like, and I see her and I wave her down, and she comes down off the stage and she comes up to me, and I just can't, she can see that I've been emotional, so she starts crying. And I'm crying and I hug her, and she's never hugged me like she did right then. She just was, and she backed away and she just looked at me and she just goes, "Daddy, what does it mean?" So I had to kind of explain to her what it meant and how her friends had voted for her and how that she did such a good job and how much she's loved and appreciated. This girl who had a special brain, was different from other kids, would sat alone by herself at lunch and recess because people made fun of her, didn't understand her, had found a place. And I turned around and I looked, and there was all these kids from her church group that were there, a cross-country team that was there. They all came down and they just hugged her and they loved her. And unbeknownst to me, my wife had texted Sarah, who had now been 2 years at a local university, and she was there. And after it was all done, she came down. She was there, and she and Caitlin embraced. Now, tell Caitlin's having a hard time smiling there. She's a little overwhelmed. I don't know what Sarah's going to go do with her life. I think she's going to do great. She's studying to be an actuary. She's a smart little cookie. But in our house, we will revere her name forever because of what she did. She didn't have to, but she did. And because of that, she changed the course of my daughter's life forever. Forever. So here's what I want to ask you to do. As you get started here, and as you're going, and you're wondering, what should I do? Chances are the things that are holding you back is fear. What will they think? What can I do? What if I fail? And I'm going to ask you to look that fear right in the face and be Sarah. And step into it. And when they misunderstand you, or they ask you what you're doing, or tell you you're in a pyramid scheme, be Sarah. Help people. Lead with that. Be that person who reaches into somebody's life who doesn't believe in themselves in that moment and can't see a way out of it, but is maybe giving you at least a little bit of an idea that they want some help. And you step in that and you be Sarah for them. That's the best thing the reason why I share this story is because this is how I pay this forward, because I know there are people that all of you have right now in this moment. I don't care if you've been a coach for 2 months, 2 days, or how long have we been doing this? 20 years? 10 years? There is somebody right now, that needs you. So be Sarah to that person. Be Sarah. Make those steps. Take that step. And when it gets hard, and when it gets frustrating, and when you start to lose your purpose, remember that your business gives you the chance to be that kind of person. So be that kind of person. And if you will do that, if you put that first, I promise you, Elite, Success Club, all that stuff is appendages to that. It starts there. That's where the roots go. Not the other way around. And if you'll remember that, then the rest of its stuff will take care of itself. I love this quote. I don't want to live in the kind of world where we don't look out for each other. Not just the people that are close to us, but anybody who needs a helping hand. I can't change the way anybody else thinks or what they choose to do, but I can do my bit. Be Sarah. So as you create these goal boards, these vision boards, I want you to think about that. My purpose. Why I'm doing what I'm doing. How am I going to fill those check boxes with purpose? With every check that I do. And when you will do that, I promise you, that the rest of your business will take care of itself. Thank you guys very much.
I'll give you the same